Next, energy, a subject which colors the fortunes of virtually every nation, large or small, rich or poor.
Humanity craves energy. It powers our homes, our economies, and our dreams. It's estimated we consume about 580 million terajoules of energy globally every year, with China and the US by far the largest, followed by India, Russia, and Japan. That's the equivalent to the energy released from the Hiroshima nuclear bomb every 4 seconds.
Historically, humans have harnessed energy since essentially the beginning of humanity, and that began with fire.
Controlling fire as a source of energy gave us the ability to cook food. That gave us an excess of energy to run faster, to go further.
So that had an impact on the size of the brain. It also allowed us to spread, so we could live in regions that have been colder.
Since those early times in human history, the rush to harness energy has grown in line with our ability to harness it.
As we've gone through time, it has greatly changed and evolved and morphed. And now we're using energy at historically high rates.
Access to reliable energy is the basis for industrial development and for economic development in our modern economy.
When you think about a green transition, you really need to start thinking about how humans will interact with their physical environment and have an economy that works in a functional way in a net zero future.
We will have to invest over $600 billion every year until 2030 just to keep up with the expected energy demand.
Since 2000, global energy consumption has increased by 1/3 and is projected to continue to grow in the foreseeable future. By 2040, it is predicted we will consume 740 million terajoules annually. That's an additional 30% growth. By 2050, it is predicted to be 900 million terajoules. That's triple the 300 million we consumed in 1980.
Each train brings in 2,000 tons, and it goes back for more.
Today, over 80% of our energy comes from fossil fuels.
Fossil fuels refer to fuel sources which are formed through essentially decaying organic matter, and that can be plants or animals. So coal is formed in peat bogs from ancient leaves and wood which has been buried, heated up. Oil and gas is formed in a similar way. All of those types of fossil fuels have been really central to our development.
And then, of course, if we go further into the more recent past, then we had the Industrial Revolution. So coal was the driving force for steam engines.
Beginning in the mid-18th century, the Industrial Revolution saw the use of people and animals to produce goods shift to industrial processes and machines. And those machines needed energy.
It was the burning of coal across large parts of the world that allowed the production of steam, which then allowed steam engines to be developed, not only for transport, but also for manufacturing.
Those places that had easy access to coal resources to power the Industrial Revolution were also then the locations where economic development took place.
The reason we literally have our high standard of living in a first world country is solely due to fossil fuels and the exploitation of those fuels.
Today, as much as 82% of our energy needs come from coal, oil, and gas, with 4% from nuclear. meaning 86% of our energy fuel sources are dug up out of the ground. And these fuel sources, by their nature, are finite. But our insatiable use of them begs the question, how long until they run out? In 2018, demand for oil rose 1.3%, which is almost double the average annual rate for the 10 years prior. Predominantly driven by the transport sector, our oil reserves are running out faster than other fossil fuels. If we don't find additional oil reserves, experts estimate our known oil deposits will be gone by 2052. Coal and natural gas are expected to last a little longer. Without finding additional reserves, natural gas is predicted to run out in 54 years, and coal in 110.
The United States continues to be approving record number of fossil fuel leases, and we must send the message right here, today, right now, that that has got to end.
Fossil fuels have brought us to this deeply problematic future with regards to climate change, but it is economies built on fossil fuel use that have brought people out of poverty.
It's dwarfing everything in Seattle.
And that is a really difficult thing for us to deal with, is how do we balance global well-being versus this bigger existential threat which is still global.
So, we find ourselves in this new rush towards alternative energy generation. But unlike previous resource rushes to exploit a discovery, this is a rush to find the discovery itself.
We have committed to building 9,000 megawatts of wind power capacity.
Most countries have committed to achieving net zero by 2050. That's not that far away. And so to completely change the way that they're using energy in their entire economies is a major challenge. And so there's a real rush about how we can do this.
It's not like we just look at an industry and you say, you're bad, we'll turn this off right now. It's about a transition.
And the solution is unlikely to be a single silver bullet. It's going to need many silver bullets.
The green revolution means complete transformation of our energy system. Currently, we get our energy out of the ground as coal, as gas, as oil. We cannot continue to do that because of the CO2 emissions into the atmosphere.
The sun is the central controlling body of the solar system. Its rays supply heat and light, food, fuel, and power.
Our sun. Not only does it provide the light and warmth that sustains life on Earth, it generates 384.6 septillion watts of energy per second.
Esta es una planta que hoy día es de 1.200 metros cuadrados, con la cual hemos podido recuperar cerca de 86 kilowatts de energía eléctrica, lo que equivale a el abastecimiento de 70 casas.
Solar technologies convert sunlight into electrical energy through photovoltaic panels.
Photovoltaic effect is essentially generating a voltage by exposing a material to light, photons. Hence the name photo, photons, and voltage, photovoltaic.
We can store energy for later use at any time, and then we can generate energy.
When light photons are absorbed by a photovoltaic material, typically a semiconductor like silicon, they transfer their energy to electrons in the material. This energy boost allows electrons to break free from their atomic bonds, creating electron-hole pairs. By establishing an electric field within the semiconductor, these free electrons are directed into an electrical circuit, generating current. And the reason silicon is special is because the quantum mechanical properties of the electrons in silicon is just right to respond to the spectrum of visible light as we have it on this planet.
Advances in silicon chip technology in the middle of the 20th century enabled the development of silicon semiconductors.
Light, acting like the sun, powers this miniature Ferris wheel. A small solar battery converts the light directly and efficiently into electricity. Inventors are physicist Pearson, engineer Chapin, and chemist Fuller.
What the scientists did in the Bell Labs was quite significant. So they found a way to produce large amount of voltage and current that we could actually utilize to produce electricity. Making shift from scientific theory to a viable renewable energy source. This innovation paved the way for modern solar power, leveraging sunlight for sustainable electricity generation.
Quartz crystal today is an indispensable strategic material.
And suddenly there was a new rush on silicon.
In photovoltaic cells, we need high-purity silicon. And to create high-purity silicon, we need high-purity quartz, which is the raw material we start with. And this is something that we really haven't had a big need for before.
In 1958, the world's first solar-powered satellite was launched. And within a few decades, space stations were also being powered by solar. Yet the cost of producing solar cells meant that early attempts to commercialize this technology failed. But this began to change in October 1973, after a coalition of Arab nations invaded Israel. Following the US's decision to resupply Israel during the conflict, OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, reduced their petroleum production and placed an embargo on oil shipments to the West.
There's no diesel fuel for lorries at any service station on the M6. At Immingham, ships' crews are being told they can only be given so much fuel.
If our energy resources are properly developed, they can fulfill our energy requirement for centuries to come.
In the face of the economic turmoil these embargoes created, national policies aimed at energy conservation, increased efficiency, and national energy independence emerged. What followed was booming global investment in renewable technologies and the emergence of commercially viable solar power.
The goal, to make solar electricity competitive with other forms.
In 1975, the first solar panels cost about 105 euros per watt. By 2010, that had plummeted to just under 2 euros per watt. The continued rush for solar technology since 2010 has seen the price continue to plummet by as much as 90% to 24 cents per watt. In 2022, solar comprised almost 45% of total global electricity generation investment, triple the spending on all fossil fuel technologies collectively. Before the decade is out, solar is tipped to outstrip coal as the world's major provider of electricity.
Garrett Cashman made his mark in the 1950s as a balloonist. Now he's working on harnessing the wind to produce electric power.
And it wasn't just the modern solar industry that emerged as a result of the oil crises of the 70s. The wind energy sector's roots can also be found during this time.
Now, with fuel of all kinds at a premium, researchers are once again looking seriously at windmills, like this 100-kilowatt turbine that can generate enough electricity to power 30 average-size homes.
For example, Denmark's pioneering transition to wind power began as a result of the energy uncertainty of the 70s. Today, they are world leaders in wind turbine manufacturing and have had recent instances surpassing 100% of electricity use with wind power. That same year, wind generated enough to cover 15% of the European Union's electricity demand.
The Green Revolution has seen us almost kind of going back into the past. We're now basically making big fancy windmills. We've got wind farms. That technology of harnessing the wind has been around for hundreds of years.
The same wind that windmills use to pump water and grind grain is now turning giant wind turbines to power cities and homes.
As they move past, the magnets cause the electric charges in the coils to move, producing an electric current.
The wind turbine is essentially a conversion device that converts the kinetic energy of the wind into a rotational motion of the blades, and the blades are in turn connected to a shaft that turns a motor. By converting the rotational motion into electromagnetic forces or electricity, we can basically convert the kinetic energy of the wind into electricity.
The rotor is equipped with permanent magnets which spin around coils of wire. Permanent magnets can maintain a constant magnetic field without the need for an external power source.
So the stronger your magnet is, the larger the electricity production in those coils are.
While some may complain about the noise of wind turbines,
and they say the noise causes cancer. You tell me that one, okay?
there's a bigger issue looming inside the turbines themselves.
These permanent magnets are primarily based on what's known as rare earth materials.
Despite their name, rare earth elements aren't necessarily that rare.
What rare earth element means is that they rarely form oxides that are just made out of these elements. So they are not rare on Earth, but they form rare earth elements. The abundance is much higher than for gold and uranium. So it is not rare, the material, but the difficulty they had is extracting it separately.
And it's not just turbines. All renewable energy sources require more minerals, including rare earth minerals, than their fossil fuel-based counterparts. And the mining, refining, and processing of these minerals into components all require large amounts of energy. A typical electric car requires 6 times the minerals of a conventional car. And onshore wind plants require 13 times more mineral resources than a gas-fired plant. The global shift to clean energy is driving a huge increase in demand for these minerals. And this is happening at a time where, much like during the 70s, our global energy market can be incredibly vulnerable to geopolitical tensions. In February of 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. As a result, the West placed sanctions on Russian industry, making the sale of Russian gas internationally more difficult.
The best way to support lasting peace is to support Ukraine.
And Russia, in turn, suspended the sale of gas to certain European nations, further exacerbating the gas shortages in Europe.
Das ist die Realität, wo Energie als Waffe eingesetzt wird. Und wir sehen müssen, dass wir nicht wehrlos sind, wenn Energie als Waffen eingesetzt wird.
Prior to the invasion, Germany relied on Russia for as much as 55% of its gas. So the country looked for other suppliers of gas while also introducing incentives for people to heat their buildings with heat pumps instead.
These heat pumps can transfer heat from one place to another. It works on the principle of heat exchange, similar to a refrigerator or a reverse cycle air conditioner. Designed to provide both heating and cooling, they extract heat from the outside air or ground, and they transfer it to indoors. In cooling mode, they work like an air conditioner, removing heat from the inside and releasing it to outdoors.
Because most of the heat is transferred rather than generated, heat pumps are far more efficient than conventional heating technologies. So, as it turns out, being cut off from Russian gas has increased Germany's uptake of renewables, accelerating their goal to be net zero by 2045. But of course, it's not just heating people's homes that need to transition to carbon-neutral energy. And as the world rushes towards greener energy sources, reliability becomes increasingly problematic.
As we transition from a fossil fuel-based energy system to an energy system based dominantly on renewables, is that we no longer control the timing of electricity production. And there we have this variability issue.
There's one element that has long been touted as a solution to our energy needs.
A hydrogen atom consists of one proton as a nucleus and one orbiting electron.
That's where we will have to rely, at least in part, on hydrogen as an energy carrier that will have similar qualities to the fossil fuels that we use today.
Hydrogen has a good heating value, about 2.5 times that of methane, so per kilogram, it's got a lot of power.
A hydrogen bond forms between two water molecules.
As soon as two hydrogen atoms come close to each other, they immediately bond, and this process releases energy.
In fact, it can theoretically replace oil, natural gas, and coal in almost all applications.
9 young men at this company are working to utilize a fuel source as plentiful as the water from which it is derived.
So hydrogen is ideal for those industries that are really hard to electrify. So there's things like container ships. You can't put a big battery on a container ship. It's just not going to work.
It can be used as a feedstock for the process of making steel. We use coal and coke as what we call a reducing agent. And here we can use hydrogen instead of coal-based feedstocks.
This means hydrogen has the potential to transform heavily polluting and CO2-emitting industries like steelmaking into zero-carbon ones.
And so you're going to have to change that fuel source. At the moment, they use bunker fuel. In the future, that could be ammonia or methanol. Both those chemicals are derived from hydrogen.
And hydrogen is pretty much everywhere.
It's the most abundant element in the universe.
It's readily available in the ground and in the atmosphere. It's literally everywhere. We have such a high quantity that in certain ways it's something that will continuously recharge our energy systems.
Hydrogen may be abundant, but it is typically found as part of another compound. It's the H in H2O, water, and in CH4, methane, both available in vast quantities. So for it to be used, the hydrogen has to be separated from the other elements. The most common method is to heat natural gas to extreme temperatures, splitting the hydrogen from the carbon atoms. This means that producing hydrogen from methane emits carbon both as a waste product and potentially in the energy used to power that process. But there is another way.
The second way to produce hydrogen is electrolysis. So you can simply put two electrodes and apply some electric potentials. And if you make the water a conducting environment by adding some salt, this electricity that runs through this water splits the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen.
Electrolysis requires a lot of electricity, potentially generating significant carbon emissions as well. But when that electricity is produced from renewables, hydrogen becomes a virtually infinite zero-carbon commodity.
Wir haben uns im Übrigen auch darüber verständigt, dass wir insbesondere in einem Bereich eng zusammenarbeiten wollen und dort auch unsere Arbeitsbeziehungen intensiv ausgestalten wollen. Das ist die Nutzung von Wasserstoff.
What's happening now is there's a demand for low emissions hydrogen, a whole new market that's been created, and that's to replace fossil fuels.
All around the world, the rush is on to develop green hydrogen gigaprojects. These massive projects attempt to produce hydrogen in quantities that can compete with fossil fuels. The Iberian Peninsula is home to the largest such project, the HyDeal ambition. Launched in 2020, the project brings together more than 30 European companies working to make hydrogen through electrolysis, powered by the Iberian Peninsula's significant solar resources. It aims to establish a massive 95 gigawatts of solar power and 67 gigawatts of electrolysis capacity. This could produce around 3.6 million tons of green hydrogen annually by 2030, sold to industry for a price that competes with coal, oil, and natural gas. And this rush is happening globally.
Sweden has very substantial renewable resources, for example, hydro resources, but also wind. It's a highly industrialized country, so it has the capabilities to then develop industrial applications that utilize hydrogen.
And of course, countries that enjoy an abundance of sunshine.
One example is the Australian Renewable Energy Hub. They're looking at installing 26 gigawatts of wind and solar to produce in the order of 1.6 million tons of hydrogen a year. So that's very, very, very large-scale project.
In 2022, $240 billion was earmarked to drive 680 large-scale hydrogen gigaprojects around the world by 2030. This represents a 50% increase since November 2021. It's impossible to overestimate the potential hydrogen holds to provide our energy needs. Industry, space travel, even the family road trip.
This Model A truck was the first hydrogen-powered vehicle built in America.
These hydrogen cars are using fuel cells to power the car. With a petrol car, for example, if you wanted to travel 500 kilometers, use a tank of fuel. So that's in the order of 50, 60 liters of fuel. For a hydrogen car to travel 500 kilometers, you need about 5 kilograms.
Despite this, the total cost of ownership of a hydrogen-fueled car is still about 40% more than that of comparable petrol-based cars. This is primarily because hydrogen does not have the infrastructure to process, transport, and deliver the fuel to consumers yet. And as the transport sector accounts for about 21% of total CO2 emissions, finding an affordable replacement for the internal combustion engine is essential to the green revolution. Back in Germany in 1885, mechanical engineer Carl Benz designed and built the world's first practical automobile powered by an internal combustion engine. Today, there's approximately 1.4 billion internal combustion engines on the roads. That's a lot of petrol. So, in 1996, when the first modern electric vehicle was put on the market, drivers saw the beginnings of a genuine alternative.
Not only is it the most efficient and cleanest running vehicle ever built, it is the most technologically advanced vehicle platform in the world.
There are many different types of batteries, but the market is dominated by lithium-ion.
So in terms of critical minerals needed for the green revolution, we absolutely need to find and produce massive amounts of lithium in order to meet our net zero targets.
The amount of lithium required to produce the batteries that the world needs to store the electricity has grown exponentially in recent years.
There are many countries rushing to access this white gold. Japan spends $164 million on lithium carbonate. South Korea spends nearly $326 million. And China spends over an incredible $582 million. It's not surprising, as they are the major manufacturers of high-tech portable products in the world.
The means in which lithium is mined and extracted depends on the geology setting in which it is found. Australia today is the largest producer of what we call hard rock lithium mining. That involves mining lithium in the ground. The second means by which lithium is mined is what they call via brine lake processes.
Once lithium's in solution in groundwater, it can be evaporated or concentrated through geothermal processes to form these really salty brines, which just means a fluid saltier than seawater.
The dominant location in the world in which lithium brine is mined is in South America. There's an area known as the Lithium Triangle. It's a triangle which straddles southern Bolivia and northern Chile and northern Argentina, where the geology and geography of the Lithium Triangle lends itself to enormous brine lakes.
The Lithium Triangle accounts for an estimated 52 million tonnes, or up to 75% of the world's lithium resources, with Chile having the largest reserve at 9.38 million tonnes. Extracting the lithium involves drilling down into underground saltwater lakes, pumping the brine to the surface into a series of evaporation pools. After 12 to 18 months, the mixture is sufficiently distilled to extract the lithium carbonate, the main raw material used in lithium-ion batteries. From 2020 to 2022, the price of lithium hydroxide in Europe and the US rose 804%. Lithium carbonate in China soared by 1,400%. In Australia, high lithium ore rose 2,400%.
When it comes to lithium, it's no different to other critical minerals, where they don't want any one country to be a dominant player in the supply of the primary product.
There are a number of supply chains where, in particular, China is a very strong player, and I think the best example for this is the battery supply chain, where China is really dominant in all the different steps along the supply chain. But a lot of the processing still takes place in China, and then up to the assembly of the actual battery packs.
In fact, Chinese companies control half of global lithium production and over 70% of lithium-ion battery manufacturing.
And this is an area, I think, that is of particular concern and where the US and Europe are also trying to catch up and develop those battery supply chains domestically.
For example, the US's Inflation Reduction Act has introduced massive tax incentives for electric vehicle production. But to qualify for those tax breaks from 2025, vehicles with batteries containing critical minerals extracted, processed, or recycled by foreign entities of concern, like China, won't qualify. Although the EU's Green Deal industrial plan doesn't go as far as the US's Inflation Reduction Act, it does implement tax incentives and trade tariffs to help bolster local production too. Despite the international tensions around lithium batteries, it's estimated that 1 in every 250 cars are electric, or about 2.2%. And sales are climbing astronomically. By 2030, it's expected that more than 50% of cars sold globally will be electric. But despite the optimism that comes with these innovations, the problem remains.
The carbon needs to stay in the ground. We need to stop the current destruction of our planet.
It will take decades for the green transition to fully take place, and centuries for the carbon we've already released into the atmosphere to stop affecting the climate. Even if we stop producing all greenhouse gases tomorrow, it would take beyond 1,000 years for CO2 levels to return to pre-industrial levels. But we're not stopping tomorrow, and some industries can't avoid emitting carbon regardless of where their energy comes from.
Some of the carbon that's being emitted into the atmosphere is linked to the hard-to-abate sectors like steel and cement and heavy industries that don't have clear other ways to decarbonise. So even if we decarbonise the whole of our economy, we still have these geogenic forms of carbon dioxide which are being emitted into the atmosphere.
Hard-to-abate sectors emit over 6 billion tonnes of CO2 into the atmosphere every year. With the cement and concrete industry alone producing 8% of global carbon emissions. In fact, after water, cement is the most used substance on Earth.
Everybody knows that the cement industry is a highly emitting industry in the world. But what people don't really understand is that one of the largest parts of the emissions in the cement industry is from the calcining of limestone, which releases carbon dioxide in that industrial process.
Calcining limestone is the process of firing limestone, or calcium carbonate, in a kiln at roughly 850 degrees Celsius. The limestone decomposes into calcium oxide, cement's principal ingredient, and carbon dioxide. The carbon released in this process accounts for roughly 60% of the emissions in cement manufacturing, with the other 40% coming from the combustion of fuel.
It's a fundamental part of the chemistry of cement, which inherently releases carbon dioxide. So you can't easily decarbonise that by switching to renewable energy.
Global demand for cement is forecast to rise by 48% to 6.2 billion tonnes by 2050. So what can we do?
There's enough space in wells in the North Sea to store up to a century's worth of carbon dioxide from every power station in Britain.
Carbon capture sequestration is essentially a mechanism to contain carbon. So you capture emitted carbon at the point of emission, and you find a way to store it safely and efficiently for a very long time underground.
Shell is proposing just such a scheme using an existing pipeline here to dump carbon dioxide under the sea.
One of the key challenges with the geological sequestration of carbon dioxide is actually ensuring that it doesn't leak back to the Earth's surface.
This is always a danger that if it's not really stored properly, if that would leak, it would change the ocean water chemistry.
On top of the risks of seepage, geological carbon storage can be very expensive. But what if we could reimagine carbon's value? What if the next rush was for carbon itself?
We transfer and sell that liquid carbon dioxide, which we call sustainable CO2, to users of that carbon dioxide like concrete manufacturers.
There's an amazing opportunity to really reimagine carbon dioxide from a waste into a valuable input.
Carbon capture utilization is essentially capturing carbon at the point of emission and putting it in use into some commercial value, whether it's some building materials or creating fuels.
Paper, laundry detergent, carpet. The uses are really broad.
So you basically turn that carbon into a commodity and put a value on it.
The industry potential of the carbon utilization market is around $6 trillion US.
The carbon we emit and then capture can be redirected into a new product in a variety of ways. One of those ways is through a process called mineral carbonation,
which is really based upon the way that the Earth normally stores CO2. Over millions of years, through a process called weathering, the Earth embeds carbon dioxide into carbonate form, turning a gas into a solid. And we have sped that process up from millions of years on a geological time frame into a matter of minutes. Put simply, what we do is we take industrial sources of CO2 and we embed them into magnesium silicate rocks.
The process requires reacting CO2 with a silicate feedstock. Although the best silicates are those containing high purities of magnesium or calcium, mine tailings, steel slag, or even cement kiln dust can be used instead.
Just a month ago, this was carbon dioxide emissions, and now this is a negative emissions building material, which means that more CO2 is embedded into it than was created in its creation. And it's building materials like this that will facilitate a net zero future.
This has the potential to decarbonize huge swathes of hard-to-abate sectors.
We could be locking away billions of tons of CO2 permanently and safely into building materials every year.
And the green revolution will require many elegant and efficient solutions. To do this, we need to reevaluate our entire economic model.
The current economic model is take, make, waste. It's very linear. Whereas the circular economy, it's more of a circular principle which says that there's no such thing as waste. There's only molecules in the wrong time, wrong shape, or wrong place.
Recycling components has been shown to reduce energy associated with mining and refining by as much as 88%. As much as 25% of the world's permanent magnets could be made from recycled rare earth materials by 2030. And recyclable materials from old solar modules could be worth as much as $15 billion by 2050.
The process takes over and they separate different glass, the silicon, the backsheet, silver.
We made something from them. That something broke down or we didn't need it anymore, so we threw it away. Going back to that pile of what is otherwise viewed as waste and actually re-extracting those valuable materials will be a key part of the green revolution.
We also consider nowadays a landfill as a repository of materials and energy which we can recover.
Then we can make concrete from that. A concrete that is much more sustainable.
Molecules which can become products designed for durability, maintenance, and eventual recycling. thereby creating a closed loop where resources are continually repurposed rather than discarded. So that the only thing we throw into the waste bin is the idea of waste itself.
I think the main part is that the term waste is already wrong. Of course, it's a secondary resource. And already in science, we tend not to call it waste anymore. So it's not electronic waste, it's end-of-life electronic devices.
It's crucial for technologies to develop with the circular economy principles at heart, because it's technologies for the circular economy that will really facilitate rapid decarbonisation. It's business models with circular economy principles in the carbon dioxide space in particular that will make the transition faster than we would otherwise see.
Navigating the labyrinth of humanity's energy challenges is like playing a global game of chess.
It's the first of its kind. It's showing us how you can transport liquid hydrogen.
Where every move counts, but there's no checkmate move to solve it all.
We need to really reconsider how we will create no carbon versions of our everyday life. In order to get to a net zero future, we need to do everything everywhere all at once. The green revolution has not begun yet. We've been getting ready for the race, but the starting gun has not yet gone off.
From the warmth of ancient hearths to our vast electricity grids, our evolution was intertwined with our ability to harness energy and use it. Our continued evolution now hinges on our collective intelligence and efforts to embrace a world powered by green energy. A world where renewables not only heat our buildings, but also construct our buildings. Where closed-loop production moves us, shapes us, and lights our way to a sustainable humanity on a healthy planet.